Okay, thank you. Can I just welcome you all to the what will be the final Policy and Resources Committee. Before we start, can I just say, right, obviously you've all had sight of the late report, and that's the urgent property matter. It's by Jackie Buchanan and Ian Cochrane, and it's got its recommendations. Can I just advise members that that exempt paper relating to an urgent property matter has been issued to all members, and that I am of the opinion that this matter should be considered as a matter of urgency, as a decision is required in relation to the property which cannot be dealt with at a later date. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. We will take that as the last item of the in the exempt papers. Just before we go on, I'm sure you'll all agree with me that our hearts go out to the people of the Ukraine. And lastly, before we start, this is our last P&R. And can I just thank all the officers and the members for their contributions over the last 5 years. We've not always agreed, but on saying that, I think this is a committee that has been exemplary and how it has behaved, and I thank you all for that. I'll go on to the agenda, and that is 1, apologies or substitutes.
Yes, Convener, apologies from Councillors Sturrock and Wan, with Councillors McLaren and Lumgear substituting respectively.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Not seen any declarations of interest. Seeing that, I'm going to go to participants, just right, but you haven't done yet. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Yeah, I have a declaration of interest. Item 8, report 8722. I am a council-appointed director of Montrose Golf Links Limited, which features in that item. I am declaring an interest. I have no financial interest, and I will stay in the virtual chamber and discuss and vote if necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, we'll go into right. Nobody else? Don't see anybody else.
Councillor Fairweather, mine is a ditto for that.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Councillor Boyd.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the minutes. 1, the previous meeting, submit for approval as a correct record. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
2, the appeals subcommittee, submit for noting. Is that agreed?
Okay.
I think I did hear and agreed, but I'll take silence as golden for that one. And 3, the special subcommittee, submit for noting. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, and that's the Capital Monitoring General Fund Capital Programme. It's on page 11 to 28. Ian Lorimer, and can I just thank Gillian Woodcock. You've got the recommendations. Are there any questions? Not seen any questions. Any comments? Councillor Duff?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I would just make 2 comments on it. I think the capital spend to year end, I think, is forecast as 91%. And while that's perhaps better than some previous years, it's still, we're not hitting the 100%. I think on the housing situation, that's much better. And I think that is actually above 100%. So that's good. And I think credit to officers there for expediting things there. I would draw your attention to item 95, Stracathro School. Now, we had a report last month at Children and Learning, which gave us the roll at Stracathro, which is 15. And this expenditure, by my calculations, has cost us £19,600 per pupil. And I guess we are talking about best value at the moment. I would be questioning whether that was best value, but that's just a comment.
Okay, well, we'll just leave it as a comment, or do you want anybody to come in, Councillor Duff?
I'm quite happy if someone comes in.
Perhaps Mr. Lorimer?
Thank you, convener. No real comment in relation to the project that was agreed in the 21-22 budget. As I recall, that was a necessary upgrade in order to comply with health and safety requirements, etc., etc. So I think that was a necessary project, even though, as Councillor Duff has pointed out, it's expensive relative to the role. In terms of the projected spend by year end, there are really a couple of things that are affecting that are largely beyond the council's control. Over £1 million of I'd call it slippage, but it's really just a rephasing of the spend on the Arbroath flood project. So that's a significant one. And the other significant one is really in relation to the delivery of vehicles that we don't now expect to get before the year end. And some of that's just about supply chain issues within the kind of wider market. And that market remains quite a challenging one post COVID and now with other world events having an impact. So we continue to try and make every effort to achieve the spend that has been budgeted for. But there's a couple of big ones in the list which are having a significant effect on the projected year-end position, as Councillor Duff has highlighted. So I hope that's helpful, convener.
Hopefully. Councillor Duff?
Yeah, thanks for that, convener, and thanks to Mr. Lorimer for the explanation. Thank you.
Okay, I did see Mark Armstrong's hand going up. I don't know if that was a mistake.
No, it's okay, convener. Ian Lorimer covered the point about the health and safety requirement with regards to those improvement works at Stracathro.
Lovely. Right. Thanks for that, Mark. Councillor Miles?
Yes, no, when it comes to improving small schools, it's always going to be a higher cost per capita. So it's a burden we have to accept. Just a question of the finance director. The cost of building anything at the moment is rocketing skywards. So does he think we'll still be able to retain the cost estimates that we have in our budgets? Or will they have to be reassessed due to the rocketing prices for both energy and others that out with our control?
Back to you, Mr. Lorimer.
Yeah, through you, convener. Yeah, I wish I knew how that was all going to play out, Councillor Miles. I think we have recognised that it is a risk. It's probably more of a significant risk right now than it has been for quite some time. So it is something that we will have to keep a very close eye on. We've had in terms of tender returns on some of our projects. Some have come in very competitive, some have not. And the one that happens to catch my eye in terms of the report is the Restenneth landfill project, which we're having to have another look at, just as one example of where that can happen. We have a capital contingency provision within the capital budget overall that can help us to manage issues that arise if projects come in over. But I wouldn't dismiss the possibility, if we really see a huge rise in material prices, etc., of having to potentially revisit the capital plan to make sure that it remains affordable. I think that is the kind of scenario and environment we're in now, of one where inflation is much more of a significant issue and risk than it has been for many years. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I see the hand of Gavin Balfour going up?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Ian's really covered what I wanted to say. The figures that were in this year's budgets have been uplifted according to the building cost indices that are on go at the moment. We're predicting 11% increase So as Ian said, we'll just need to watch as things go on in the year. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Gavin. Okay, have we got any further comments? No. Okay, we've got the recommendation. It's 1.1, reviews and scrutinises. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Number 5 is the revenue monitoring 2021-22 and renewal and repair fund position at 2021-22. Ian Lorimer again, and can I just say thanks to Jill Rennie. You've got the you've got the recommendations. Any questions? Not seeing any questions. Okay, any comments? Comments? Okay, we've got the recommendations in front of us. 1 is review and scrutinise, and 2 is note. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
We'll move to 6. And that's the continuing care implementation allowances right expenditure. Catherine Lindsay, and again thanks to Eunice McClellan. We've got the recommendations. Are there any questions? Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks. Oh, God.
David, convener, anything you want.
Sorry, I was having trouble with my mic there. It was going on and off and on and off. Yeah, I was just wanting to comment that the gap between the funding level and the anticipated spend is quite extensive. Have we got any expectation that we will get an uplift to cover part of the increased costs?
Okay, Catherine's here. Catherine, can you help?
So there have been annual increases, as indicated in the report. Unfortunately, they haven't kept pace with the demand or the cost of individual placements, and some of our spend is because we do have a small handful of young people whose placements are particularly expensive, and that may not continue to be the case into the long term. But equally, in the medium term, it will certainly be because those young people are entitled to stay in that placement for the next few years. So certainly in that kind of in-between period, there is a risk of significant over-expenditure. Now, what we're asking for committee to do is in essence, authorise myself and Ian Lorimer to write jointly to COSLA to highlight the costs that we are incurring locally with a view that representations may be made in terms of any additional funding, specifically for Angus Council, but potentially more widely, because this is an issue that other local authorities are also experiencing. There is a lot of focus on care for looked after young people and care experienced young people. This is an area that does have a lot of policy focus at the moment. Whether or not I'm confident that we will be able to leverage in the monies to plug the gap in the meantime at a local level, I'm not really good enough at my predictions to confirm or deny that at this moment in time. I can only be hopeful, and if we don't ask, it certainly won't happen.
Thanks for the explanation, Catherine. And just for the avoidance of doubt, I'm hugely supportive of this policy, and it's really important we continue to support these young people. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Whiteside. And thanks, Catherine. Councillor McMillan Douglas.
Thank you, Convener. If I can also ask the Director, the demand, as Catherine has just suggested, has gone up quite substantially over the last few years, from 11 to 17 young people. Are we in step with the rest of Scotland on this, or out of step? Now, I particularly ask that question not because there are rights and wrongs, but because it will probably influence the response that we get through COSLA from the Scottish Government.
Absolutely, I'm happy to provide a response to that. There has been a partial analysis across Scotland by Social Work Scotland colleagues. The information's not published, and obviously not every local authority provided data, but that data does indicate quite clearly that most local authorities are experiencing an uplift percentage-wise. So I'm just having a quick look at the report here, 44%. 36.7%. Some of these are for much bigger local authorities where individual young people don't cause quite such a percentage swing as for Angus. So I think we are definitely in step with the other local authority areas that responded to that inquiry, and anecdotally I am aware that this is an issue that's much more broadly a risk across Scotland. The issue is one of legal entitlement which grows year on year, and obviously as the awareness of the option to stay in continuing care placements becomes much more understood and much more just part and parcel of a young person's expected journey, then we will see uptake also increase. So the eligibility has increased, but the uptake will also increase, and there will be some variability around the cost of individual placements, obviously within that, depending where the young person is at the point that they trigger the move into a continuing care placement.
Okay.
It's the same placement, it just transfers into another bit of legislation.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Catherine. Does that help?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, that's very helpful indeed. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor King.
Thank you, Convener. I'm noting that these are young people up to the age of 21, which is quite often when young people are seeking to set up their own first home. How much does the shortage of counselling contribute to this remaining in a care placement? Because we know that we are terribly short of counting the massive sell-off in the 1980s and 1990s, at a very high counted rate. I'm glad to see that we don't do that anymore, but I am aware that there's a massive shortage of suitable accommodation for young people in the rented sector.
Thanks, Councillor King. I don't know if that's, is it Catherine or maybe Gavin wants to come in? I don't know.
I'm certainly happy to provide some initial response, and if there are others that can add to that, the more the merrier. So just in response to your specific question, Councillor King, as to whether or not I think that a lack of housing options for young people is triggering the increased uptake of continuing care. It may have an impact for some individual young people who want to move to independence, but I suspect that's not what's behind it. We have very good arrangements with our housing colleagues and specific pathways in place for care experienced young people. So for those care experienced young people who do wish to move into independent living pre the age of 21 and post, we have good support through our Horizons team, who are our through care and aftercare provision team, and we have Millgate Loan, which offers semi-supported independent living with a concierge in Arbroath, and we've also got direct routes into supplying independent living flats with our colleagues in housing, which we then can support with furnishings, etc., in the same way as we would if it was our own young person moving out from our own family home. So I think there is a very good pathway in Angus, and it's one of the areas that we hear anecdotally that people look to us with some envy in relation to. But I'm not saying that means that there is a huge amount of housing available in choice for people, but certainly I don't think that's what's impacting in this particular cohort.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Does any other officer want to come in? Don't see any hands. Okay, we're happy with that explanation, Councillor King.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think there's any further questions. Any comments? No. Okay, right, we'll go to the recommendations. 1 is note, 2 is authorise, and 3 is approve. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. We'll simply go then to number 7, and that's the approval of the revised whistleblowing policy. That's Sharon Faulkner, and can I thank Ewan Ritchie. You've got the recommendations. Are there any questions? Not seen any questions. Any comments? No comments. Okay, the recommendations are 1, reviews and approves. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Number 8 is the golf governance member officer group. The progress and update recommendations for change from Montrose golf Montrose golf links. It's by Alison Smith, and can I thank Jane Taylor. It's on page 80 to 92. We've got the recommendations. Are there any questions? Seen any questions? Any comments? Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendations. Well, I mean, I support all the recommendations, but particularly I would discuss the recommendations as far as they pertain to Montrose Golf Links Limited. I returned to the board in late 2019 when the thing was it was going through some troublesome financial water. I think the last 2 years have been quite challenging, I think would be fair to say. However, I think there's a lot of improvements made. I think the financial position is much stronger. I think the board is now working in a very cooperative fashion, good atmosphere, and we have got some excellent volunteers who are doing a good job. And we've recently appointed a new general manager who has he's only been in post 2 months, but he seems to be making a great start. So things are looking a lot better. The reasons for the change, I think, is to provide a bit of resilience in the board, that we can co-opt 2 members if necessary. We feel that 2 council representatives is sufficient. I think one of them should be an elected member from the town because of the common good interests. The other one can be either an elected member or an officer, I think, as we see fit. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'd certainly ask you to support it. That's what the board want. And I think it would be good to move in that direction. I think the board are also keen to open discussions with the council about renewing the lease, which expires in 2024. And there's already, I think, we're certainly preparing a business plan so that we can come to the council with a statement eventually of what we want to do and where we are financially.
Thank you for that, Councillor Duff. And you're right. Your comments are most welcome. Councillor Boyd.
Yes, Councillor Duff has said most of that I wanted to say about the Montrose situation. I have enjoyed the time up there, though frustrating at times that and try and help the Montrose board using my my business skills to try and turn this around. But it is very disappointing that the other 3 Montrose councillors didn't actually step up to the mark. It shouldn't really be for someone from Carnoustie to come up and have to look after that. But that's one of the reasons why it's maybe as we move forward that you only need 1 local councillor on it. But there definitely has to be local councillors on each of our boards, whether that be Arbroath, Monteith or whatever. So that was that. So that's enough on the Montrose. But the other bit as well is it's good to see. Frustratingly, we didn't get it finished in this political cycle, but we got most of it done. The MOG itself, and thanks to Jane and to Alison for all the help, and of course Melon Dunn for all the help she had. Now we're putting it back over to officers between now and June, I would imagine. Unfortunately, we won't have Merlin done anymore because she's planning to retire before we're all back in the next political cycle. So I think we should all thank Merlin for all the work she's done over the time before she retires, and I think this is just an ideal opportunity for us to show our sorry, I'm gabbling on a bit, but the support that she's given us over all these many years. Thank you, Councillor Devine, for giving me a little handshake there that helped me from gabbling on. Thanks very much.
No, I'm used to you gabbling on, so don't worry about it, right, Councillor Boyd. But points well made. And yeah, I would certainly like to thank all the members of the member officer group, and the members themselves, and and obviously the officers for all the work that they have done. Regarding perhaps the members who from Montrose who didn't or decided not to be on it, they had their own particular reasons, and I'm certainly not going to say they didn't want to participate. If somebody's got a reason for doing something, that's their prerogative. Anyway, are there any further comments? If there are no further comments, I'll go to the recommendations. You'll probably note that it seems to have 2 3s. There's not. It's 1 2 3 4. Well, on my papers it's got 2 3s, but number 1 is note, 2 approves, 3 approve, and 4 agree. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Number 9 is the Business Gateway Teesside Performance and Governance Update. That's Alison Smith, and many thanks to Merlin Dunn. I didn't realise Merlin was going to be retiring, so congratulations, Merlin. You more than deserve it. The work that you've done and all the time that I've been a councillor. We've got the recommendations in front of us. Are there any questions? Councillor Macmillan Douglas.
Thank you, Convener. My question is to the Director, and she is aware that I'm on the National Board of Business Gateway, and one of the things that we are looking at, in fact, we've got another board meeting on Friday to look at this, is to look at the interface between Scottish Enterprise and Business Gateway to make the support more obvious where it should be coming from to businesses. I wanted to ask Alison if she felt that this was becoming clearer, or whether she thought that there were still things that we had to do to make it clearer.
Thank
Alison?
you. Yes, I'm happy to pick up on that. So I think there's probably 2 parts to that. By making these improvements that we're suggesting here in terms of Business Gateway governance, that's to really strengthen the links between the Tay-City Deal governance that we have, and as members may be aware, business support has always been one of the in terms of how we collaborate without being a specific project with money attached to it through Tay-City Deal. And we've been working really hard as partners to try and have come up with a form across all the business support agencies that makes that better for businesses in our area. I think we're really aware that Scottish Enterprise have restructured several times, which doesn't help in terms of understanding their offer to business, but they are part of our regional discussions. They're driving the work around creating the Enterprise Forum for Tay-City Deal. So, working with them so we can make sure that adapting the offer locally so it's the best it can be for partners regionally is really important to us. I think nationally there will be more work to come in terms of what we're seeing emerging from the National Strategy for Economic Transformation, and actually how the delivery of that plays out will be significant in terms of what the role of Scottish Enterprise is, as well as Business Gateway local. I think more to come around that really, but what we are trying to do locally and regionally certainly is make that simpler for businesses so they can get access to all the support, funding and the...
Thank you for that, Alison. Does that help, Councillor McMillan Douglas?
Yes, it does, Convener, and I would just like to congratulate Alison and her team in making this interface between Scottish Enterprise and Business Gateway work reasonably well locally. I think we still have challenges nationally. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Devine?
Thanks, Convener. It's kind of following up from what Alison was saying there, because I was concerned that in Appendix 1, in the governance part, T-Cities deal isn't actually mentioned. Now, you've just said that it is going to be there and there's going to be an interface there, which is great. And I would believe that would be the case. I just thought that it might have been quite specific about that. And also, there's no mention of circular economy and climate and sustainability, climate emergency and sustainability, rather. Can you explain that to me? Why are these not in there?
Back to you, Alison.
Sorry, apologies, I've got a bit of a slow button today as well, just trying to get that off. So in terms of the alignment, so what we've had today is a business gateway structure which didn't really recognise it. It was the same structure we've had for a number of years. So what we've got now is that the heads of economic development, one of the groups within the T-City deal structure, will report to the business gateway board. So it's just, we really have some of the same players around these agendas. So it's really about just trying to make those links where obviously the Business Gateway Board, is by its name, is really focused on the Business Gateway contract, very specifically around that business gateway, whereas the wider business support, including Scottish Enterprise and other business support agencies, that's coming through the heads of economic development, where they're discussing, wider matters of economic interface and engagement. So this is about just really trying to align them. But at this time, there is no review of what is the business gateway nationally. So we're just trying to kind of bring the communication, I suppose, around what's happening, just trying to align that. But we can't do very much at this time because there is still a national review underway around looking at the business gateway as a whole. We're not able just to say, well, we're just going to create a local model. So it's just really about that closer alignment. Can I just clarify, when you're asking about the climate change and sustainability, is that within the spec of business gateway specifically you were referring to, Councillor Devine?
Yeah. So just again in Appendix 2, all down that page, there's no real mention of that at all, which I'm a wee bit surprised at.
That's something I would need to take away and just have a closer look at exactly what's within that. I mean, the scope of the contract is as wide really as we want to make that, but I would need to go back and have another look just to check exactly what's being discussed, so I could come back to you on that one specifically.
That's fine. Thanks very much. It's been a bit confusing for many years, I think, all these interlinkings. Is it not the case? Even when I was economic development spokesperson long time ago. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councillor McMillan Douglas, is that an old hand?
Sorry, Convener, an old hand, yeah.
Okay, any further questions? Comments? No comments. Okay, we'll go to the recommendation. 1 is notes, 2 approves, and 3 delegates authority. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 10 is the annual procurement report. Jackie Buchanan. We've got the recommendations in front of us. Have we got any questions? Oh, right, Jackie, you want to come in because I know Councillor Hans also does. But Jackie, you want to come in?
Yes, just very briefly. Thank you, Convener. It's to say that in terms of recommendation 4 and 5, there's a typo. It should reference 2019-2020. So apologies to members for that. It's just the previous year as opposed to 2018-19. So thank you, just to clarify that.
Okay, right. Thanks for that, Jackie. Right, well, first of all, because Councillor Hans did say she wanted to come in. Councillor Hans, do you want to come in first? Which will be followed by Councillor Devine and Councillor Whiteside.
Apologies, convener, that I gave you the wrong report number. It's 11 and 13, but thank you for remembering.
11 and 13. Right. I'm not saying I'm going to remember. I'll remember 11. I maybe not remember 13. It's not my favourite number. Okay, it's Councillor Devine.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Well, Mrs. Buchanan's just answered my first question, because I was thinking there was going to be 3 reports going forward to Scottish Government, so I think that's okay. Just a very quick one. What, on page 120, you're talking about regulated and non-regulated procurements. Could you explain that to me, please?
Jackie?
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Devine. Yes, I could, but I think I'll leave it to the expert, Lynn Robertson's acting head of the procurement manager at the moment. So I'll ask Lynn to come in, if I may. Thank you, Lynn. I presume Lynn's got a connection problem. I'll explain what it means is the ones that are regulated, Councillor Devine, are the ones that are covered by statutory provisions due to the thresholds that they hit, and the non-regulated ones aren't. So hopefully that clarifies it for you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Whiteside?
Thanks, convener. Yeah, I was just having a look at first of all, I'm pleased to see that the recruitment has progressed a little bit and expansion of the team. That should be good going forward. I was just looking at the table on pages 127, 128. There's some areas of spend that are really low and the savings are really minimal. And I'm just wondering, I'm just questioning the benefits of going through Scotland Excel for such small amounts. I think the possibility is that we'll be excluding some small local suppliers that don't want to go through the hassle of going through Scotland Excel. Is there a cut-off point where we have to go through Scotland Excel, or can we go out and look for prices for small purchases independently of that? That would seem to be the sensible approach.
In terms of that, Councillor Whiteside, the bottom line, of course, is that we look for best value. Again, Lynn's better with the details, but she's just messaged to say, unfortunately, that she can't get her mute off. I wonder if IT can assist there.
I notice her hands. Right, I notice her hands up. Can Lynn come in?
Yeah, we can't actually unmute her physically ourselves. It has to be done at her end. It's a restriction of Microsoft Teams itself. So if it's not working, I'm not sure why it's not working, unfortunately.
Councillor Sturrock had that problem last week.
Yeah, she does seem to be on mute. What I can suggest, Councillor Whiteside, and apologies for this, if Lynn manages to resolve it, she can come back in during the discussion of this item. But if not, I'll ask her to confirm to you why we're in effect using Scotland Excel when the savings are, as you say, a bit smaller and may put off those businesses that feel that they don't want to go through that process because it is a bit more complex, as you're alluding to.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, convener. It was another question about Scotland Excel. From what I can see, we pay £88,000 a year to participate in Scotland Excel, and it gives us savings of 200,000. That doesn't, on the face of it, seem to be a particularly great. I mean, it's worth it. It's worth it, but not hugely worth it. It's double. But I would have thought we should be making more savings for that sort of entry ticket. That would be my thinking. As I understand it, we're also saying that being a member of Scotland Excel will benefit local companies, and there's a number of local companies that are mentioned. There's 2 significant ones, a vehicle supply company and Rossi School or Rossi Trust, which I suppose are significant beneficiaries. But I feel that the entry ticket and the savings, I would have expected to see more leverage from an organisation like that.
Okay, Jackie, I'm afraid it's going to have to go back to you.
Yes, no problem with that, Councillor Duff, and it's a good question. Of course, Scotland Excel also provide the service of procuring for us, so they save significantly in terms of that and often offer frameworks, which makes it a lot more straightforward for us to procure. Certainly in terms of the review that we're looking at, you'll see that there is additional staff coming in, and the intention is to look at matters such as that. Where is the best value to be obtained in procurement? Are there further items that we can, or contracts that we can put to Scotland Excel so the savings would be greater? And if in fact it is best value to continue with them. So we will cover all that in terms of the procurement review which we're carrying out. And we hopefully have the staff starting very soon. Lynn's also messaged to say that as I've sort of indicated, we're perhaps not using Scotland Excel as much as we can, and we'll make sure we have a holistic look at what we're doing and ensure that where possible we can do that.
That's helpful, and thank you for Lynn for coming back like that. Is that helpful, Councillor Duff?
Yeah, thanks. So it's good that we're doing a review, and as Councillor Whiteside has said, it's good that we're increasing the staff numbers. That's helpful.
Okay, Councillor McMillan Douglas, is that an old hand or a comment?
It's as near, I guess, as to a new hand, convener, but it's a comment, not a question.
Okay, I don't think there's any more. Is there any more questions? No. Okay, we'll go to comments. Councillor McMillan Douglas.
Okay, thank you very much, convener. 2 points from me. Firstly, that I think everybody who read it will be extremely pleased that we now achieve 40% of our total spend through local companies. And although I'm sure that people will say we could be doing better, and of course we can always do better, that is a substantial achievement. And so I would like to congratulate officers on that. Secondly, as colleagues may know, I'm on the executive board of Scotland Excel and have been for the last 4 years or so. And it is a constant issue about what is bought through Scotland Excel and what is bought through Angus Council. But I will remind people, I'm sure they already know because we've discussed it in the past, one of the main bits of work being done between Angus Council and Scotland Excel was their leading our project to try and bring Dundee, Perth and Kinross and Angus Council closer together to for procurement points of view. And we identified as part of our strategy about 3 years ago that there were substantial savings to be made if we could achieve this. Unfortunately, this wasn't achieved within this particular political cycle. It may very well be achieved in the next one. But I would again like to thank our own officers, but also Scotland Excel for trying to bring the parties together there. And I'm absolutely sure that there are good savings to be made in the future going down that route. Thank you, convener.
Thank you very much, Councillor McMillan Douglas. Jackie, you want to come back?
Yes, please, if I may, convener. It's just to add to what Councillor McMillan Douglas was saying, and that the plan is to do that, albeit it's not through the formal route that hopefully we looked at previously. Through TPC, which is Tayside Procurement Consortium, we plan to bring more joint procurements together through the 3 authorities, and I've had discussions with my counterparts in the other 2 authorities about that, and that is the plan going forward, so that we have an action list of all our contracts and can see where best value can be achieved in sharing procurement across the 3 councils.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Yes, convener. I was just picking up on Councillor McMillan Douglas's comments. Yes, we're at 40% for suppliers headquartered in Angus, but we were at 35% in 2016-17, which was the last year of the SNP administration, and we were actually at 41% in 2017-18. So we've actually slipped back, and we haven't really increased by all that much. So I would have been hoping that much more was going to Angus firms than just 40%, considering we were at 70% in 2016-17.
Thank you for that, Councillor King. I'm not going to nitpick, but I think we're still going in the right direction. Okay, are there any further comments? No? Okay, right, we'll go to the recommendation. 1 is notes, 2 authorises, 3 notes, 4 delegates and 5 notes. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 11 is the policy for recording in Microsoft Teams. Jackie Buchanan, and can I just thank Alison Watson. We've got the recommendations. Any comments? All right, sorry, Councillor Hands, it's you first.
No, I really thought you were going to remember. There you go. No, thank you.
Listen, I'm called memory man at times.
It was just to ask and get assurances with this one, because it's section 3, it says what's possible and what's not, and paragraph 3.3, I think on page 129, is basically saying everything else isn't possible other than the recording of training and various different specified events. And then in the policy itself, it says, if unsure, speak to your information officer. But I'm a bit concerned that with Microsoft Teams, there will be some members of staff, and I was just thinking about, how I work myself with Microsoft Teams. When you're involved in a meeting or you're minuting a meeting, there will be some staff potentially with disabilities or other issues that need to have reasonable adjustments made. So I always record meetings like that so that I can sort out the minutes. So I just want to have assurance that obviously, a key objective within the council plan is to maximise inclusion and reduce inequality. So we need to recognise that we will have some staff within Angus Council that may need to record meetings for very good practical reasons. They're not sharing the information, but it's there as a tool to do their job. I noted that there wasn't an impact assessment done on the policy either, and I wonder had it been so that there would have been a little bit of leeway within the policy to make sure that where staff members need reasonable adjustments, that can actually happen. So can I have assurances that there will be scope there to ensure if staff members need to use recordings in order to do their jobs, there will be that facility to do so?
Okay, who's going to help with that one? Is it you, Jackie, or is Alison there?
It's myself, Councillor Fairweather. Thank you for your question. Councillor, very well put in terms of that, and you're quite right. We do need to make reasonable adjustments for staff that have additional needs, and I'll take that back and ensure that we do that. And if that means recording meetings, then we can look to do that too in terms of reasonable adjustments, ensuring that we comply with the GDPR provisions that we need to. So thank you.
Is that helpful, Councillor Hans?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, Jackie.
Super. Councillor Whiteside?
Thanks, convener. Yeah, just wanted to say that I agree with Councillor Hand's comments, and in general, it just seems like the policy is too prohibitive. I don't think there's any breach of GDPR by the actual act of recording, and in some cases it may be necessary to do that, like she says, and it's actually the actions, if the recorded material was shared, that would be the breach of GDPR, not the actual recording itself. So I just want to emphasise that I agree strongly with what Councillor Hans said, and would like Jackie's opinion on that.
Jackie?
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Can I suggest, Councillor Fairweather, that the recommendations are amended slightly to say that it will be subject to the Council's equality obligations in terms of the implementation of the policy, and that would allow us that leeway in relation to recording if and when appropriate in terms of that obligation.
Are you saying add that? So we've got two recommendations. So add that as a third one.
Well, what we could do if members are minded to do so is just approve the adoption of the policy, subject to any requirements for recording that may be required in terms of the council's equality duties.
Okay, I'll just ask now. Is right? Hopefully everybody's finished. Right? Are we happy with that suggestion?
Yep.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it right? So the report's agreed. Thank you for all your comments there. Okay, we'll move to item 12 is redress for survivors, historical child abuse in care, Scotland Act 2021. That's again Jackie Buchanan, and thanks again to Alison Watson. It's got the recommendations. There's only one, and that's noting. Have we got any questions? Not seen any questions, any comments? Not seen any comments. Okay, the recommendation, as I say, is one, notes. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. 13, right, and Councillor Hands, I will remember you this time. It's the grant agreement for voluntary action Angus for 2020 to 2023. It's a joint report from Alison Smith and Vivian Smith. And can I just say thank you to Pete Morton. You've got the recommendations. I don't know if it's questions or comments. You've got Councillor Hands, but I'll go to you first anyway.
It is a question, and it's a question I remember asking in 2015, and various different councillors have asked the question over the years as well. And it is about when the review of the funding of Friday night projects, because it's been something that we have been asking for quite some time. Obviously, the last 2 years have been an issue, but considering it's been ongoing now for about 7 years, it is time that we get an undertaking of when that's going to take place.
Okay, you can help, Councillor Hands.
Convener, I'm happy to come in.
Thank you, Alison. No, Vivian, sorry.
Vivian here.
Sorry,
That's
Vivian.
the Smith effect again. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hands. And you're absolutely right, this again. I think, over the last year it was raised just in the last time we looked at this, and I gave an undertaking that we would bring a review forward. That review is underway. We are doing that as part of the Angus Alive transformation project on the one hand, because that's the bit where a lot of the grant that goes to Friday night projects actually ends up with paying for facilities in Angus Alive, and on the other side of it, the reviews with Voluntary Action Angus. I'm happy to report that the Kerry project did manage to open last Friday. There's been a lot of challenges with that over the last wee while, and there has been implications from COVID and also other emergency situations that VA have been responding to with us in partnership, for example, the weather issues, etc. So June is the target date for finalising that with VAA, and I have given a commitment to come back on the Angus Alive transformation project by June as well. So before the summer, we should have all of that information coming together, and we'll see where we go from there. But it's likely to be as part of the management review for Angus Alive, where we can actually make the changes, because VAA is only one Friday night project. There are a number of others that sit within Alison's service that are also subject to that review that will conclude in June.
Thanks for that, Vivian. See, Alison wants to come in as well.
Yep, Second Smith will come in. Thank you. Yeah, just to add to what Vivian was saying, and I think it's, you know, as part of that, having established the new Vibrant Communities team back in summer, and Audrey Meehy coming in post in November, we've obviously been reviewing all of the activities undertaken by the team. And that review of provision in general is part of the work that we're doing. So we'll be aligning that with what Vivian has outlined there. But that's, you know, really taking this chance to look at the services provided and how we do that, and what's the best way to provide that and what's needed. So we're undertaking all of that work at the moment.
Thank you, Alison.
Can I just come back, Convener?
Yes, of course you can, Councillor Hans.
I think that the issue that a lot of us have, though, it's not really, we're not really seeing this in terms of how the Kerry provision fits within the Angus Alive review. This started and has continued on the basis of ward councillors are looking for a bit more parity in terms of how the various projects across the wards are funded and facilitated as well. So it's much wider than just looking at the review of Angus Alive services. It is about looking at provision for young people across the wards. So I would hope, given that we've waited this time, that we can actually get the level of scope that we had originally asked for when we actually do get it reported on.
Yeah, apologies, Councillor Hand. I wasn't clear enough around the differences between that. The bit with Angus Alive is about the costs of using the facilities that Angus Alive on behalf of the council, which is where a lot of the payments go, whether the services Friday night are delivered by VAA or by Angus Council. So all of the Friday night projects. The second review is that review of the Friday night projects and the work across the board in terms of costs and looking at the provision for young people. And that review will also conclude in June. It's just the timings are coming together. So hopefully that helps to clarify.
Thanks for that clarification. Thank you.
Super. Alison, did you want to come back in?
No, that's fine, thank you. I think Vivian's talked about that provision element, which is what we're looking at as the service.
Okay, that's great. Okay, are there any further questions? Got comments? No comments? Okay, we've got the recommendations. It's 1, agree, and 2, authorise. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Super. Okay, we'll go to item 14, which is a property transaction at Loon Park, Freecombe. Can I just remind members, there is a green paper at 16. Are we happy to continue with item 14? Councillor King? Remember, we can't speak about item 16, I think it is. Councillor King?
Muted and decameraed. I've only got one question about and it's about the recommendations. First one is
the recommendations on item 14?
Yes, on 14. Before we go into them, I just want to ask a question about them. First one is to approve the sale, and the second one is to agree that the property be placed into a property auction. Is it possible to actually link these to say that we initially approve the sale But if that fails, the property shall be placed on auction, so we don't need to come back. I mean, this has been on this has been on the market for some time. We've only got one offer, and at the end of the day, I feel that we should be taking a decision. If we want to accept that offer, fine. If it should fall through, we should then be able to go straight to auction without having to bring it back to another committee.
Not adverse to that. Mr. Cochrane, do you want to come in on that one?
Thank you, convener. So that if members are minded to accept this offer, but as I think as Councillor King is saying, if it fails to materialise or for whatever reason, then we then go to auction. I'm happy that that's the decision of committee.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Right. Well, Councillor Boyd wants to come in.
Yes. Mine's the other way around, Alec. I hate to tell you, where mine would be and I think we'll then have to maybe discuss this when we're in private, because I would like to know how much it's costing us in empty rates. I also want to know what the timescales would be for putting it to auction and things like that. So I'm the opposite to Alec for reasons that I think we have to discuss under green paper.
Okay, well, right, I'm going to. Right, is there anybody further wishes to speak on that? Because I'm right. Councillor King, I don't know if you want to put a motion in regarding that, right? Which I will, right? Which I'll second. Your suggestion. You're on mute, Alec. You're still on mute, Alec. Sound great when you're on mute.
I try and do it too quickly and it goes back on mute. Right, it's going to run something along these lines. In recognition that we have received a single offer to purchase the property at Lunan Park, Freecombe, the committee approves the sale of the former offices to a housing association for the development of affordable housing, or in the event that the sale is not completed, agrees that the property be placed into a property auction or through the council, etc. Could I just have a quick run on that from Mrs. Buchanan? I think I've worded it reasonably well. She may want to tidy it up just a bit, but I think I've got the flavour of what I want to say.
So you're moving that the property be put on the market for sale in the event of it not being sold within a set period, you want to put it to auction? No, I'm saying that we have an offer and that I approve that we accept that offer, but in the event that offer fails to complete, that we authorise the property to be placed on auction immediately thereafter. Well, in principle, that sounds fine, but can I ask Mr. Cochrane to come in because he knows the detail of it, please?
Yeah, I'm content with that, Councillor King. I think the word immediately is part of the problem. It does take us a wee while, I think, to answer Councillor Boyd's question to some extent, if I may. We're trying to avoid going into anything in the green paper. It does take some while for us to change from marketing to then actually get in an auction, because we obviously have to wait for an appropriate auction to be timetabled that this property would go to. So, so I'm content with it. So, on the basis that if, in the event of this sale failing, the property should then be auction should go to auction.
You can take the word immediately out if you like.
Yeah, thank you. And perhaps if I can, through yourself, convener, in terms of for Councillor Boyd, obviously, if we agree the sale today, then it will go forward as property transactions do. It will take some time to complete with Mrs. exchanged before we get the actual date of handover of the keys and the council's receipt of the money. That would have to be set against a similar process, as I say, that if the property was to go to auction, then it would take some time for us to have an appropriate auction for it to go to. We have only previously agreed one property over my financial limits, which were £10,000 to go to auction, and that is still to get there. So I would imagine that the timescale for both processes would be perhaps not dissimilar. So I don't know whether that helps with Councillor Boyd's point. Thank you,
I'd like to
Convener.
just come back in on that. I'm hopeful that this offer is a good offer and it will go the way we expect things to go. But I'm merely looking at the situation of trying to allow officers to proceed to the alternative if we have to.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that, Mr. Cochrane, and certainly, thank you for that intervention, Councillor King. For Councillor King's motion, I am certainly going to second that. I think this is good for the council. It will certainly be good for for council tax, and I will take this particular building off the market, where it's been for quite a considerable time. Councillor Boyd, do you want to come back in on that?
Yes, if I may, Councillor Fairweather, I do think we could be getting ourselves in the position that we're not getting best value for the council, but who knows? So I just want to be on record to say I'm not entirely comfortable with it all, but maybe when we're under the green paper, we'll be able to discuss this a little bit further. Thanks very much.
Do you want to put in an amendment in?
No, I don't want.
Boyd?
Don't want to do that, Councillor Fairweather, but just want to record my dissent.
Okay, Jackie, you want to come back?
Yes, please, if I may, Convener. It's just to clarify that once the motion's put, this matter will be decided and there wouldn't be any further discussion. So if members were inclined to a further discussion, they would need to go into an exempt meeting space to do that before making any final decision.
Okay, Councillor Speed.
Yeah, sorry, just in light of what Mrs. Buchanan's just said there, so are we, in this meeting, are you looking for support for that motion that Councillor King's put forward? Yeah, because I just had some, I just wanted to raise a concern, and do I do that now? Is that?
Convener, if I can come in,
yeah, you can.
I might be able to help. Can I suggest that we adjourn consideration on item 14, move to the exempt part of the meeting and read and consider the papers at item 16, then come back and make our decision on item 14. It means exempting the public from that part of the meeting, but that seems to me to be the sensible thing. When we have exempt information that we cannot discuss on item 14, let's adjourn the meeting and take it to item 16, discuss that information and come back and make our decision on item 14.
Quite happy with that. Right, we all agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, right,
Agreed.
I'm going to move that, let's have a look. Possible exclusion of public and Okay, right. Right, are we back on? Yes. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion by Councillor King, which I've seconded, and I will ask members, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you.
Agreed.
Convener, just for the avoidance of doubt, we're back in the public domain. I think just to clarify, Councillor King's motion was to approve the sale of the property, but in the event of the sale falling through, to authorise officers to proceed to auction.
Correct.
Thank you, Convener. Thanks, Councillor King.
Thank you. We'll move on and we'll go back to possible exclusion of public and press. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you.